Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Backshed Bible Study. Today is the 8th of September, 2025, and I am glad you joined me because the leaves are changing and we're going to talk about it. Welcome to the Backshed. All right, this is it. Fall is right around the corner, and as you all know, this being September, still early in September, though. As you start to look out the window, you see a few leaves that are starting to slightly change their colors. I know in my backyard, as I look out there, there are things that are just starting to change. And so I'm anticipating, I don't know if I would say looking forward to, but I'm anticipating this time coming up very soon when it will be time to actually start raking a lot of leaves, which I do not really don't look forward to that. But the fun part about that is actually my kids get to do all that, and then I will help them along the way, especially since we have one fewer kid to rake than we did before. But that's what we're going to be talking about today here in the Backshed, is we're going to talking about the leaves are changing. So should be fun. Candace, welcome. We already got people watching live here. It's starting to get chilly up there in Mount Shasta. That's right. And the farther you move north, in those degrees of latitude, the cooler it is, the more colors you get to see. And I'll tell you what, for April and me, our anniversary is September 26th. And so we are looking forward to one of these years when life's a little slower for the two of us, and we're not actively involved in all the kids' sports and everything else that is going on. We are looking forward to that time when we can head out to the East Coast and do take a week or two and do a fall colors tour. So, you drive south to north and you follow the colors changing. So, looking forward to that someday. Good morning, Barb and Rick. Welcome, joining us from Cleveland this morning. Always a joy to have you along, and we'll be sure to say hello to your friends. I'm sure you probably already have today. So, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. Let's see. So I'm back in the shed. I haven't been here in a while. I had a congregant ask me yesterday at church, "Are you going to be? Are you going to go back to the shed, or are you just going to keep doing these things from your office?" Well, it's cooled down quite a bit. So temperature wise, like I'm looking here, it's 72 degrees in here. It's a perfect morning. I may go over here and turn the fan on in a minute. Gave me an opportunity actually also to clean up a few things because I've had projects going along, and I didn't really get to tell all of you about this, but not long ago with my kiddos, I was able to. We were able to complete a fence between our backyard and the neighbor's backyard. So that was a pretty big deal because it was starting to fall down, and our dear Poppy, as you know, was wanting to jump through said fence on a fairly regular basis, and so I had to. Work with my neighbor, and so we kind of worked out this agreement that we would do the labor if they would pay a little more than we were paying, and so that all worked out actually really well, and we were able to get this fence done. So I'm going to do a little screen share. I'm going to attempt to do a screen share for a moment here. And what I remember is that I'm trying to do this from my phone. And so we're going to see if I can make my phone want to do this, which it does. And so I'm going to pull up a picture here as we're watching along. Thank you for your patience. And as you see now, you are live on my phone. And there it is. There is the picture of the kiddos Right there. That is the fence that we did together. Let's see if I've got there you go, the hard workers there. There's another good one of it. I don't have any pictures of the before. There's a kind of a before and after at one spot. So at one spot where the fence was starting to fall apart. And anyway, a lot of random things there on my phone. Let's see if I've got any other. There's a good before picture over on one side where it had just kind of become a disaster. My dogs are out here going crazy right now. So that's if you see me getting a little distracted right now, that's what's going on because they are going a little nuts. Let's see if I can switch over to let's switch over to the phone and see if I can catch those dogs out there. I do this just because I can. All right. Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you doing here today? Good morning. Hi, Sunshine. How you doing? Yeah. So there you have it. Sunshine and Poppy are just going at it this morning. So that's if you see me getting distracted along the way, that is why I'm distracted because I have two dogs that have decided to go to the dirtiest place in the whole backyard, and that is where they wrestle around. That is where they decide to play, and then they just shoot this dirt and decomposed granite all over our patio, which drives me batty. Would anyone like a lab? Hey, knock it off. Anyway, so there you go. That's a good time at this point. Sorry for all the distractions this morning, but that is a good point for me to stop and let's jump into a little uh, a little backshed Bible study as opposed to just Cliff sitting here yapping talking about his dogs. So I'm also going to see if I can bring up our our live videos that are happening. This is supposed to be streaming live over on the Backshed page, but I'm not finding it. So anyway, I'll just be following along with the chat on the main page here today. So, hey, what I wanted to do is talk for a moment about with these seasons changing, and I had somebody a couple of years ago give me a really bad time. They said pastors are always talking about seasons. Everything that pastors ever talk about are seasons, and I got to thinking about it, and she wasn't wrong. There is indeed a lot of season conversation that is going on. Oh, I see. My dog's barking like crazy out here. You probably can't hear that, but she's going nuts because the neighbors are jackhammering. So she's losing it right now out there. And I'm going to have to see how I can do without getting super distracted this morning by the dogs. You may end up wishing that I was back at the office and not um, here in the shed. So there you go. But seasons, and it's inevitable. Fall is coming. The leaves are changing. The leaves are eventually going to fall off the tree, and as they fall off the tree, we're going to know that we are in a new season. We got to clean up the mess, and then things are a little more stark and a little different. At the same time, benefits come to different seasons as they come along. For instance, we have a giant tree in our backyard, just right out here, that faces to the east, or I'm sorry, that is to our east. And what that tree does is that tree ends up blocking probably about 80% of the sun in the morning that would be hitting my solar panels. Okay. And so this is kind of the interesting irony is as the fall hits and as it starts to get cooler, as those leaves come off that tree, I start to get a lot more solar production here in our home, even when the days are starting to get shorter. So kind of fascinating. Where in the summer, when the tree is fully full of all of its beautiful green leaves that are not falling on my lawn, I don't get great solar production for several hours in the day. So kind of an interesting piece of benefit of a changing season, right? And so we all have things like that. And then we have seasons of winter. We have seasons where things are hard and the days are short and it gets cold and you're like, when is it going to, you know, whatever. And yet there are amazing, beautiful parts of winter, to go through a winter storm in the mountains and wake up the next day to just the gourd, how beautiful snow is and untouched snow. And oh my gosh, these dogs are crazy today. Um, and Poppy has a bark collar on, and now it's like stepping up its intensity and getting a lot louder because she just keeps barking. Okay. But you get it, and so there's the beauty of a winter, but there's nothing like spring, is there, right? When the dead starts to come to life and you have new life and growth and everything. So, and especially around here in Sacramento, there's nothing like a Sacramento spring. I love how mild it is. I love that we could go a month without running any air conditioning or heating in our home. The economics of that is amazing. So you get it. Lots of different seasons. In the same way, we have seasons in our life, and but I'm going to kind of equate these a little more to where we are. Think age wise, okay? And so as you start in a season of in our younger years, I look back, especially with Peter going off to college right now, to the time when I was in high school and college, and when I was going through so much life growth, I didn't even realize because at that age, we all think we know everything, don't we? Right? You don't want to listen to your parents. They've kind of gotten dumb. They started getting dumb when I was about 13. They didn't get smart again until I was about 23. But we all had those kinds of times. And yet at the same time, everything's coming to life during that season. It's the spring of life. And, Peter right now, he is just having a blast. He texted me the other day and they're out hiking outside of Sedona out and I'm like, send me pictures, please, because it is just gorgeous. And he is discovering the world without his parents. And he is making friends and they're just doing fun things together and going on these hikes and hanging out and growing in this faith as he's spending time with a lot of people that love the Lord as well. And so there are just some really cool things happening as he's learning and growing. But I remember, and I alluded to it a second ago, how my parents didn't wake up and my parents kind of checked out from 13 to 23, so to speak, where they weren't very smart. And obviously I'm saying that in a sarcastic and ironic way because it was during that season of my life where I'm learning and growing so much that I am the one that checked out from listening to my parents because as someone in that time, you're passionate, you're curious, but you're also pretty entitled. And you tend to think the world revolves around you. And unfortunately, some of us learn in harder manners than others, but we get to those points where we realize now the world does not revolve around me. Mine at 23 was I had some life decisions that I needed to make about my career and in which direction I was going, and I was weighing a couple of options, and I was really struggling through it, and I remember thinking, well, who do I ask for advice from? And I thought, maybe I'll try my dad, and I called my dad, and I remember him being silent on the other end when I said, hey, I'd like to drive home this coming weekend and spend some time with you because I'm really looking for some advice. And he didn't know what to do. Silence. I'm not joking. Silence on the other end of the phone because this little guy, not so little, but this guy right here had never asked for advice from his father. And I remember after it was all done thinking, gosh, that was really good. How did he know? How did he know me so well? Um, so that was what I experienced, and so, but it's a great time in life. And I went to a seminar a couple of years ago at a conference for executive pastors, and the seminar speaker called this the Prince and Princess stage of life. That um, you're not a lead, you're not in charge. Um, you're you're not seasoned or anything like that, but you got a lot of potential, and you're going through it, and you're learning, and you're growing. Um, if you think about people in the Bible during this season of their lives, the Apostle Paul, before he was Paul, when he was Saul, and when he was a zealot that was, very zealous in his persecution of the church, that's a biblical example of someone that's in the prince or princess time of life. And by the way, some of these references, I give credit to Lee Coate, who does church consulting and so on. He is where I got a lot of this from. But an entitled time in life, and but it's so you got to watch out for that. But if you're in that season, it's one of those times where you get to take advantage of your curiosity. Your society allows you to make mistakes. It used to allow you to make more mistakes. It doesn't. We're a little hard right now on people during this time of life. But take advantage of it. So you're in that young stage, you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s even. Um, just like passion, curiosity. Watch out for the entitled feeling. Watch out for that temptation to not listen to people of wisdom, because we tend to think we know it all. Oh boy. And this was a struggle I've had in leadership, is as someone who leads people in this age group or in this stage of life, it's hard because they truly do think they know it all, and they have no clue what they don't know and how bad they could really mess things up. But if we can get in there and invest into people, those of us that are in the older stages, that are in that time of the prince or princess stage, as we call it. What a great time. Barnabas was somebody who did that exact thing for Saul when he came to the Lord, and he was in that prince stage of life where he just, boy, he knew everything and knew his way around, and Barnabas really walked with him through that. So neat example there. But then you kind of move into, you start to grow up, you get out of your 20s, and you head into your 30s. 30s and 40s in reality for this stage, and this is where you're full of purpose. And remember, many years ago, Rick Warren wrote The Purpose Driven Life, and that was an incredibly effective book that reached a lot of people. I got an autographed copy. Never met the man, but he autographed a copy to me. How cool is that? But you're loaded with energy. You have purpose. There's direction, and you're just going. I'm. You're past that kind of ignorant stage where everything is curiosity, right? And you're past that entitled stage, and so you're a little more seasoned. Um, and so you take that purpose and you take that energy, you do it for the Lord. And Lee Coate, who, like I said, I got all this from, he calls that the warrior stage, right? You're out there on the battle fronts, and you are the one that is out there leading the charge. You're going for it. You're fighting the fight. If you're going to put this into a battle kind of scenario, and and you're the one that they want out there, right? Because you're willing to do the hard things. You've got, like I said, we've got tons of energy, and I remember at this stage in my life how I was involved in ministry, youth ministry in particular, and I was reaching a lot of people. I had just relationships left and right of people that I was investing into. I was discipling young people. and lots of time on the phone and talking. So in my context, it was relationally, I was investing into a lot of people. A lot of people during this stage of life will really invest into their job. They'll invest into their family, and they'll be doing all the stuff. And that is why there's a sense with if I can there's a temptation for moms, that they're in their like kind of late 20s into their 30s um, during that time to try to be the perfect mom, to do everything to make their kids succeed. And that's when a danger can come for a parent, especially of a elementary school age and even into middle school and high school, that the parents can become more than helicopter parents, but the parents can become what I like to call lawnmower parents, right? You could also call them snowplow parents if you lived in the colder areas. But that is the snowplow parent or the lawnmower parent tends to break down every obstacle for their kids and get those obstacles out of their way so their kids can just have this amazing life, right? And so a warrior, a person that is in that stage of kind of late 20s into their 30s, even into their 40s, they can get burned out. They can get overwhelmed. They can have way too much on their plate and tend to lose their effectiveness if they're going too far. But that was the season that Paul, as he went out on his missionary journeys, if you start in the book of Acts and look following chapter 8 and following, there you see Paul as the church is just growing like crazy, and he's going out there, and there is nothing that is stopping him. He is confident in who God has called him to be and the power that God has given him, and he goes for it. So that is the warrior stage. But I tell you what, you get through that, and you've been on the front lines for a while, and then you start to realize these people coming up from the next generation are kind of uh, they're at your heels, right? And they're going, hey. It's time for us to become the warriors, and it's time for you to move out of the way, old guy, move out of the way, old lady. And you're like, huh? Whoa, 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 wait a second. I am on the front lines. And then we start to realize, no, you know what? Our job is to bring somebody up into onto the front lines to come along with us and then go ahead of us. And this is exactly, I love this relationship. And if you've watched Backshed for the last several years, you've heard me talk about Paul and Barnabas. And I felt like Barnabas is that kind of person who brought Paul up, brought him alongside him, and said, now you go, right? He trained him, he discipled him, and then he pushed him out front where Paul would become the warrior at this point, and Barnabas would step back kind of into the next stage, which we'll talking about. So for some of you, as I look down the list of people that are watching along, there are people in all these different stages, but there's some of you that are watching right now. You're in that warrior stage of life. You're in the, like, I'm going, I'm doing, I'm getting it done, making it happen. And you know what? It might be time for you to start looking for the prince or princess around you, the people that have the potential to take off and to become the next stage of warriors. So be watching for those people that you can invest into. Remember, you don't have to do it all yourself. Moms, don't be a lawnmower parent. Don't be a snowplow parent. Moms, seriously. And that means sometimes one of the best things we can do is to let our kids try to figure out how to get through the weeds. Don't, or to get through the deep snow, to pull back our Colorado example. Candace, you and me haven't spent a lot of time there. Um, and so let that next generation, let our kids figure out a little more how to get through the weeds and understand that the weeds and the snow are a big part of life. And as they learn to move their way through there, they're going to learn a lot more than if we break down all the obstacles for them. Okay. Big mistakes that warriors can make is breaking down the obstacles for our kids. Okay. Oh, uh, you might be going, yeah, easy for you to say, Cliff. I struggle with this with my own kids. I would rather do it myself and and do it the right way sometimes than let them do it instead. Dishes, how I load the dishwasher, right? My daughter loads the dishwasher, and then I turn around and reload the dishwasher. And I should let her load the dishwasher and then say, "Oh, okay, hey, come over here and let's like reload these things." Or I should maybe not be so anal retentive and not worry about it. Okay, there, I said that. Um, if you don't know what that means, look it up. Okay, it's not you're not going to get in trouble. Um, Okay, Warriors, after Warriors. Okay, so teens and 20s into their 30s. That's our Prince and Princess. Our Warriors are kind of starting in their 30s, going in their 40s and 50s, in their 30s and 40s, really. Coming up in our 50s and 60s. This is the stage I'm in right now, which is kind of fun. These are our kings and queens, all right? And so they are the ruling class. No, they are people that have the experience. They have direction. They know where they're going. They're much more seasoned in life. They've seen enough to go, okay, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Right? These are the people that you've learned from your mistakes. You're much less likely to lose it when somebody does something that 10 years ago would have just absolutely driven you crazy. You're a lot more patient in this stage. And, and so the kings and queens tend to be the ones, and where are they on the battlefield? They're back behind the warriors, right? They're directing them. They're much more directive. They're leaders. Um, but it's easy for people in this stage of life to kind of check out a little bit and to withdraw even more back behind where they are not actively out there on the battlefield. Okay, if you look at the Paul the Apostle again, we look at him. This is his time as the apostle as he was writing. Books of the Bible, the book of Romans, and the two books of Corinthians, those letters to the church at Corinth that were loaded with theology and practical life. He was, instead of just backing off, coming out of his warrior stage in life, he kicked it into high gear in his king stage of life. So, pretty cool. And then the last thing I'll close us with this morning is there are a number of you that follow along, and you are in that last stage, and that is called the sage. You are the ones that are full of wisdom. You probably are not able to go out on the battlefield per se, but instead you're the one that gets to offer wisdom from a distance. You're the one that gets to offer advice, and 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 you don't have to keep the kids overnight, right? You get to hang out with the grandkids and send them home, but you get to invest into those grandkids and tell them the stories of God's faithfulness. Tell them how God showed up along the way. And it's totally that story from Joshua where the Israelites have just crossed the Jordan River on dry land. Hello there, Poppy. And as they've crossed the Jordan River, God looks at Moses. God tells Moses, I should say, set up a monument on one side of the river there after you've gone through. Have each tribe bring a rock. And you're going to set up a monument with those 12 rocks, and those rocks are going to signify what God did at this place. And you're going to bring your children and their children, you're going to bring them back, and you're going to tell the story of God's faithfulness and how he showed up when you crossed the Jordan River, when you crossed the Red Sea, and so on. And so sages, people in your older stage of life, 60s, 70s, 80s, keep going up. You're the one. We'll go 70s and 80s, all right, and 90s. Got people that are in their 90s that watch. you're the ones that we need to listen to, right? And so don't be afraid to tell those stories of when God showed up. Don't tell it. It's easy for you at this point to want to just kind of look down at the young people and go, you guys, you're a mess. Um, don't tell people as much of a mess they are as much as of how God has showed up and how you've seen God at work. And that's going to go a lot farther. They're going to remember that rather than a crotchety old person that's like, you're all going to hell in a handbasket. No, 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 no. Um, you have the great privilege in truly in love and in kindness to take a young person and point them towards Jesus and telling them the stories of God's faithfulness and how He always showed up along the way. It's going to be amazing the influence that you get to continue to have, even though you might not feel like you have that. And so, um, it's a cool stage. I look forward to that stage at some point, but I'm in a different one right now, and I'm going to enjoy being right here where God has called me to be, as somebody that gets to use draw upon experience and offer direction, and but I get to hopefully see those other people out on the battlefronts that are leading the charge as I point them in the right direction. So, kind of fun stuff. I learned this at a conference I went to about a year and a half ago, and it really was transformational for me. I was really able to learn a ton through that. So I hope it's helpful for you today. Um, and there you go. So thank you for joining me. I'm gonna shut things down here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pray, and then we're going to move on with our Monday. Lord, I thank you. I'm so grateful for the way you've created us to go through stages of life and seasons of life, and I thank you for each one of us that is in a different season of life right now, and how you've called us to be in this exact spot. And so, Lord, instead of thinking about what the next stage is like, or going to be like, or missing the previous stage that we were in, I just pray that you will help us to live where we are today, live in the now, and know that you've called us to this spot, and be the leaders that God's called you to be in the stages that we're in. So that's our prayer today. We commit ourselves to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right. That's it for today. Next week, I am planning on not having a backshed next week, because uh, I will be, and all the pastors are going to do a retreat next week on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So we'll be at church next Sunday, but then right after church, we're taking off and getting away on a retreat to do some real kind of visionary planning for the next few years, really, of give us some direction for where we see God leading us over these next few years as a church. So if you'd like to be praying, that would be great. We may do a peekaboo backshed from there. I doubt it. But if I'm able to pull it off, I'll do that. But don't plan on it. And otherwise, we'll be back here 2 weeks from today, which I believe is 22nd. How, my goodness, are we moving along so fast already? Which I believe is like the first day of fall, maybe right around there. So that's it for today. Thank you all for joining me. Thanks for good comments, as always. And just know, God is good. God is faithful. God has you right where you are today, to do His purpose. And so live there, live in the now, right here today. God bless you. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye bye.